I'm jealous of that. And he also said, I'm jealous of the Shagasari. Because before the Shagasari died, he asked for a sefer. So they brought him a vidui to prepare him for death. So he looks at it and says, why would I need this for? I didn't have time to do any of theirs. If Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said, that's the person who I'm jealous of. Someone who didn't have time to do any of theirs. Now, I don't help what the godless is, because I don't either have time to do any of theirs, but I make time. So, but that's probably what the Shagasari is trying to say. If you use your time for what you're supposed to, there won't be a problem with theirs. What's that? I don't know. But it could be probably a Shagasari. So that's what Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said. Those two people I'm jealous of. Okay. Zok to Gemara. I want to present a question that happened, and I want to ask the Oilam if they're going to be able to find a Gemara today that we could bring a ride to this Shiloh. And I might not be saying over the Shiloh 100% correctly, but if I remember, this was the Shiloh. And it occurred on Shabbos Shkolim of 1883. And Rav Meir, not Rav Meir Simcha Kohen. Yeah, it was Rav Meir. Rav Meir Simcha Kohen of Dvinsk, I think it was Rav Meir Simcha, who came to shul one Shabbos, and there was a stichsuch in the shul. Because this Shabbos, thank you so much. This Shabbos they brought out 3 Sefer Torah, because it was Shabbos Shkol, it was also Rosh Chodesh Adar, and it was Chazak, because they were finishing Parshas Pekudei. And there was a sichsuch in the shul, because Simchas Torah, they used to sell certain kibudim for the whole year. So one Yid bought, I think it was Achron, bought a schus to get Aliyah to finish each parsha. So I guess we would call it Achron. And another guy bought the schus of every Shabbos Chazak. So the Shiloh was, who gets it this week? But the reason why I'm not sure I'm right about the Shiloh is because then it could have been any Shabbos Chazak would have had the same problem. So I'm possibly messing up the Shiloh. But the Shiloh was, who should get it? What's that? That's halacha bracha, but that doesn't mean he bought it. I mean, he bought that chus. So the question is how to deal with it. So one of the thoughts was that there's halacha and Shulchan Aruch. What happens if you're in a Bismedrash and they sold seats, and the Bismedrash is set up so that there's 8 seats on the Mizrach Vant on the left side, and 8 seats on the Mizrach Vant on the right side, and then there's the aisle in the middle. And someone bought the seat that's second from the aisle, not the aisle seat. And the guy who bought the aisle seat decided one Shabbos that he wanted to pull up a chair near him in the aisle and put his son to sit there. So the guy in the middle said, I bought a seat that's 1 seat from the aisle. Now I'm 2 seats from the aisle. So I have a right to stop this guy from putting his chair there. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins, yes, you have a right to stop him from putting his chair there because he's downgrading your seat. You're instead of climbing over one person, you got to climb over 2 people every time you want to leave. So they wanted to bring. So he wanted to. The question was, should they give the guy? I think the question was, should they give the guy who likes to finish the parsha, maybe give him the 13 that they let you, maybe give him shkolim, push him to the end, or does he have a right to finish the parsha? I'm not sure what the shiloh was. So they wanted to bring a raya from that case, and I'm not even sure what the raya would have been. That he has a right to his finishing the parsha. I don't know, but we'll see if we can find a case in our Gemara today that's relevant to the shiloh. Because Rav Meir Simcha, Shabbos morning, you're groggy, come to shul, and this is what he's presented with without skipping a beat. He wasn't learning Daf Yomi. He wasn't in Bava Basra Daf Lamed Zayin, and he brought a raya and he passed on the shiloh. So let's see what the Gemara says. There are 2 people that are buying property from a single seller. One took the ilonis and one took the karka. And the Rashbam says that this has departed from the sugya of cheskes abatim, as to how to make a chazaka, which would be a raya that you purchased something. That's not the discussion over here. The discussion over here is simple. He made a chazaka on Ilanois, he made a chazaka on Karka, because that's what they each purchased, and we're discussing the rights that you're purchasing in each of these purchases. Tosfos doesn't like this pshat, because if that was the discussion, why, first of all, what's it doing in Cheskes Abatim? A. B is, what's up as a hechsek? It could have been, this person made a kinyan chalipin, this person made a kinyan karka on the Ilanois, if it's not a question of raya. But the Rishbam, it's a question of kinyan. So Amr Abzvid, the halach is zekana Ilanois, zekana karka. So the question is when one person has a property with Ilanois, and he sells the Ilanois to one person, and he sells the rest of the karka to the other person, how exactly is this sale broken up? What is the purchaser of the trees buying, and what is the purchaser of the property buying? So Zok to Gemara, zekana Ilanois, zekana karka. So Zok to Rashbam, how do we explain this psak? Zekana Ilanois leperes said he gets the pairs of this Elon below karka with no rights to the property. Lamai nafkamina. If the Ilanois dry out and die, lo yita acherim b'mkoimim. He shouldn't plant. He doesn't have a right to plant fresh trees in their place. V'zeh kona kol karka. The other fellow bought all of the karka. Afilu yesham gimel Ilanois. Even if there's 3 trees, because normally when someone sells 3 trees from within his property that are bundled together, the halacha is that nan b'moiches asfina the kana karka tachteim ubeineim v'hutzalem kamayir oyer v'salei kamalei oyer v'salei. If you sell a package of 3 trees that are together, the person is automatically buying. You're automatically including in the sale the land around the trees, even an area external to the trees, to the area that's bound by the trees, the amount of space you would need to service these trees. So if that's the case, over here as well, why don't we say the person who bought the trees gets land around the trees? If there's only one purchaser who's buying trees only, and the owner of the property is selling it to him, retaining the rest of the property, there you say the owner automatically includes, with the bundle of trees, some land. Here we have 2 lukuchos buying from the moicher at the same time. So there, the one who purchased the karka can tell the one who purchased the Ilanois, just like I don't have any chelik in what you purchased, you have all the rights to the pairs of the trees. I have no rights to them. You have rights to the wood of the trees. I have no rights to them. So too, what I purchased, you have no rights in as well. That's how the Gemara is going to explain this shita of Rabbi Zvid. So, Frank the Gemara, if that's the case, Maskav Lora Papa, how could you suggest that that is the halacha? If that would be the halacha, Im Kain, Ein Loi Lebal Ilanois Bekarka Klub. Now the Bal Ilanois has no right at all in the karka. And therefore, once these trees dry out, Lemele Bal Karka Lebal Ilanois, Akar Ilanach, Shkoil Vazil. So you're telling me that after the trees die, the Baal Akarka can tell the Baal Ilanois, take your wood and get out of here. I don't want you here anymore. Is in fact that's what you could say? And Rav Papa thought that was absurd. Rabbi Zvid's answer was, yeah, you're damn right. That's exactly what that law is. But Rav Papa thought that was absurd. And therefore Rav Papa argues on Rabbi Zvid's sack when one person buys the karka and one person buys the Ilanois. Elo Amar Rav Papa, Zeh kana Ilanois, the Chatzi karka, the Zeh kana Chatzi karka. The person who bought the Ilanois also gets a right in the karka. If it's exactly Chatzi or not, we'll see in the Rashbam. So Zokt Rav Papa in the Rashbam, Lei Malay, Kishayive Shayilan, the owner of the property can tell the owner of the Ilan, Akar Ilanich, uproot your tree, Shekoil Vazil, Veloisita Achabim Koimai. You have not purchased the right to plant another tree in the place of the tree that you have here. Aval calls Mansha who tie in payers and Yachalamike. As long as this tree is producing pears, the owner of the karka has no claim at all. The avagav the karka ainloi, even though the purchaser of the tree does not have rights to the karka, which now is nourishing the tree. Nevertheless, ha'ilan kamoshu yonik min the karka kanu liperosa. That's clear that what this purchaser acquired was the Elon and the right to continue growing and producing pears. That will become obvious later on today. Markashisha, the son of Rav Chisda, told Rav Ashi, if he bought this tree, let him take the tree out, but he can keep the tree going until it's producing pears. And once it stops producing pears, he can demand that he remove the wood. If you buy two trees in your friend's field, they do not include karka, only if you bought three. And therefore, only if these trees die, then ein like karka, the person who owns the trees doesn't have a right to replant. Alma, what you see from here, is alvagav the ein like karka, katani v'lo yakrenu achiyamos. Everybody agrees, even though the Baal Ilonis has no schus in the karka, he has a schus in the karka to maintain the trees as long as they're okay. But what you know, Rav Zvid, and surely that's what Rav Zvid would hold as well. So Rav Papa didn't like that because Rav Papa said it's absurd to claim that after this tree dies, the person who bought the Ilonis has no more rights. So therefore, we'll say Zekan Ilonis v'chatzi karka. Zokter from Lav Davka chatzi karka. Doesn't mean Davka. It's actually half of the karka. It just means the trees, the area are directly around the trees. Inami, or you could say maybe it actually means that he owns half the property. That's speaking where all of the karka was needed for the ilanos based on the concentration of trees. And therefore, really, the owner, the person who bought the trees would have a right to all that land. But since the moicher specifically deleted that from the contract to sell the trees and sold it to the karka separate, to the person who's buying the karka separately, therefore it will split that land. But even if there's only two trees, by three trees, we automatically include land. But here, even if there's only two trees, the kaimalam moicher sasvina, the elam karka. The owner of the tree would have rights in the karka. The kivin the shnei lekuch, I say, since it's not a case of one moicher selling to one loikeach, rather it's two people purchasing over here. Shekanya biyachad, motzi yamle balilonis to balakarka. The balilonis to the balakarka can say a claim that I did purchase land rights. Why? Ben Yofe's oven, just like the moicher sold to Ben Yofe, gave you the karka without any holdbacks. I bought the trees Ben Yafa, meaning with the land around them to support him. That's how the Gemara is going to explain these two studim at the end. Okay, so that was the first halacha. So it's from this halacha that Rav Simcha brings the raya that if I bought the trees, it doesn't make sense to say that I didn't buy the rights to the trees underneath it. So from there he wanted to bring up a raya that since I bought the right to the chazak, I'm entitled to the chazak. I didn't understand exactly what the raya was, but I was more blown away from Rav Simcha off the cuff on the Shabbos morning. He's groggy, he didn't even have his coffee yet. He honed in right away on this command. Dr. Pshita, what will be the halacha as follows? It's partially that if Machar Karka, B'Shire Ilonos Lafam. So now we're not talking about two purchasers, we're talking about one vendor and one purchaser. And the purchaser or the vendor was selling all of the karka, but he was retaining the ilonos for himself. So what has he retained for himself? What has he sold? So the loch is yesh loy karka. If he retained the trees in his field for himself when he sold the karka, he's entitled to karka around the trees as well as to be able to replant in the event that these trees die. Now we have a machlokes Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. So Zog to Gemara, Afilu Rabbi Akiva the Amar Moicher ben Yofa Moicher. Rabbi Akiva says, let's say I own a property and I have a bore in that property that has water in it that I want to keep for myself. And I sell the property, but I retain the bore to myself. The halacha is, since Rabbi Akiva to Moicher ben Yofa Moicher, the Moicher has not even retained for him a path to get from the outside of the property to his bar. And after this sale, if the moicher wants to get to his bar, he either has to rent himself a helicopter or he has to buy back from the purchaser the right to walk through his property to access his own bar. That's the sheet of Rebbe Kiva. So Vafidul Rebbe Kiva Damar Moicher Bain Yafa Moicher. When someone sells, he sells a Bain Yafa. So over here as well, if I'm selling Bain Yafa, then I would have given him all the karka, and I would not have retained the rights to the karka around my ilonos. So why over here would it be different? If I have a bar in your property or in my property that I sold to you, the bar is not sucking any nourishment. It's not having any impact on the land around it. Technically, the person who bought the karka can plant right adjacent to the bar. Aval ilonos, the ilonos that I retained for myself, that are sucking nourishment from the property and technically weaken it. And the Rishbam says more. Not only does it weaken it because it's nourishing it from it, but my roots, the roots of my tree, are going to get in the way of your plowing when you want to plow around it. Nevertheless, so there, since I'm actually causing some type of depletion and damage to your field, there you say shiyure shire. There you'll say that the person selling it would definitely have in mind not only to retain his trees, but to retain the rights in the land to keep his trees going, then to replant them if necessary. The loy shire, because if he didn't retain that right to himself, the buyer of the property would be able to tell him after his trees died, Akari lonach, shekoil vazil, take your lonas out and get out of here. So that's why that's push. Let's see, the Kamachachi. No. I was just talking about when I sold the two different lekuchas. And one about the kaka. So the Rishbam heads off your kasha, very good kasha. The Rishbam thought of that kasha. That's where the Rishbam said that the Baal Kaka could say, the same way I got no rights to your trees. When you got the trees, you got exclusivity on those trees. I can't claim any parish from your trees. So too, when the seller sold it to me, he sold it to me exclusively as well. Well, that's Rapapashita. That's right. Zvid holds that's what it is. No, because this Gemara, there's no taina that the Keh could say the same way you got exclusivity, I got exclusivity. That's precisely why the Rishbam brought up this svara. And this svara is not Rishbam's svara, it's the Gemara's svara. Also, due to something that you're suggesting, the Gemara is going to want to explain how Rab Zvid could agree with the Rabbanan, and how Rab Papa can agree with Rabbi Kiva. So the Gemara tells us that when you're selling the two lekuchos, it's a very different scenario than one moicher is selling to one lekech.
They have a mission with them. Whenever you buy a tree, you have to leave over a certain amount of
that you don't have to, no, I mean, if somebody wants to, if I want to plant a tree, I have to leave. I have to leave. That's right. Once if you sell it that way, then all bets are off. No. You want to know why I can say shkoyel v'zil? I want to plant it. What a dead tree? I don't think so. That's right. Although, as we now know from Jasper, a dead tree is more dangerous than a live tree. Let's go down to Jasper. Jasper is out west, and over the years, there's been a beetle that has infested and killed 40% of the trees. So there, 40% of the trees in this huge forest adjacent to some towns were literally standing matches. And all of the agencies were calling on the federal government, you got to chop these trees down and take them away because there were a major fire hazard. If the one fire break out, it'll be a disaster, which is exactly what happened last week, is that literally complete towns burnt to the ground. Jasper is a town that all the buildings, everything burnt to the ground. And now they're very upset at the federal government. Why didn't they want to touch it? It's because they're crazy green kooks. You don't touch nature. You don't touch nature. Nature is a fire waiting to happen. So it's coming out now that all of the different agencies and experts were reporting, you got to take these trees out. Forget green nature. This is a very big danger. And Gibo, the Meshuggah, says, we don't touch nature. We don't touch nature. And now he's just lying. I never said that. It's not true. So there's a big tumult now that millions and millions of dollars of damage in the whole town that got displaced is all this guy's fault. That's going on now in the Canadian political arena. But it's not politics. The guy's a Pesheya. Mamish a Pesheya. Anyway, that's one little town of Jasper, and the whole Canada's up in arms. Could you imagine if the entire north had to move out because they were getting missiled? But that's not a problem to Trudeau. So Lemele, I'm sorry. Lemele, Akari Lon of Brazil. Okay, so what would happen on the other way? What if the vendor only sold the Ilonis? In the first case, he retained the Ilonis. Here he's selling the Ilonis, but he's retaining the Karka. So there, Dr. Gemara, it's Plukta, the Rabbi Akiva, Rabbanon. That will be titled in the classic Machlokes of Rabbi Akiva Rabbanon, whether the Moicher is Ba'ayin Yafa Moicher or Ba'ayin Ra Moicher. Where Rabbi Akiva holds a Moicher is Ba'ayin Yafa. So Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva was the one who said that if I sell my property and I retain a bar, I have to then buy back from the person who I sold the land to a right to get to my bar because I sell b'ayin yafa. So if you hold b'ayin yafa moicher, then islay, then the person who bought the ilonos, I'm giving him as well property to service those ilonos. The Rabbanon leslay the Rabbi Akiva. I'm sorry, the Rabbanon leslay. So I'm getting mixed up. So therefore, the person who bought the trees would have rights to the land. And now the Gemara takes it a step further, and this is going to touch on what Moti urged. According to Rabbi Akiva, the person who bought the trees has a right to the property around the trees. Even Rabbi Zvid, who just a moment ago said that if I sell to two separate people, the person who bought the trees gets zero rights to the land. If it's just one vendor and one purchaser, then Avada, the purchaser, will get rights to the land. Why? Hanamidli, where did Reb Zvid say his halacha? That the person who purchased the trees has no rights to the land? That's when there's two purchasers here. The Omer Lei, the purchaser of the land, will tell the purchaser of the trees, just like you have full exclusivity in the Ilanos, I have absolutely no right to anything of your Ilanos. You have zero rights in what I purchased. If there's only one vendor and one purchaser, then we have the halacha of Rabbi Akiva, moicher ba'ayin yafa moicher. You know, when it's one seller, one buyer, you could say ba'ayin yafa, but you can't say it's ba'ayin yafa to the guys who bought the trees at the expense of the guy who bought the property. So that's why Rabbi Zvid's claim would be good, even according to Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva is only saying this where there's one vendor and one purchaser. L'Rabbanan, on the other hand, L'Rabbanan Leslie, according to the Rabbanan who holds moicher ba'ayin ra moicher, then when he sold the trees to this buyer, he only sold the trees and not the land. Even according to Rapap, who when there's two purchasers, says that surely the person who bought the trees bought rights to the land. Once again, that would only be when there's two lekuchos. The Omer Lei, because the owner of the tree will tell the owner of the land, just like you're claiming that you purchased the land ben yafa and you got every bit of the land. The seller who sold the trees to me sold to me ben yafa, meaning I am going to have the right to replant these trees should they die. But hacha, when there's only one moicher and one lekeach, you'll say moicher ben ra moicher. So I believe this is the Gemara directly addressing what Monty raised, and that's what the Rashbam was referring to on Omeral. So we have two sets of shilas. We have a set of shilas when there's one moicher and one lekeach, and that is the machlokes Rabbi Akiva the Rabbanan, if you say ben yafa moicher or not. And then we have the shilah when there's two lekuchos. Do you say that he gave the rights to replant the trees or not? Now, this is actually a little bit of a difficult Gemara because we never like to encounter a machlokes and metzias, right? We never like to encounter a machlokes and metzias. We always, now the only time you could have a machlokes and metzias where you can't argue is when there's no way to verify it. For instance, if Amoraim are arguing about something that occurred in the Beis Hamikdash, was a kier here, was a kier there, that is a machlokes in Metzias. There's no other way to describe that machlokes, to explain that machlokes, and one of them has to be wrong. I don't know how that works with Elu Vilik Chaim. If it's a machlokes with a kier here, with a kier there, one of them has got to be wrong. But most machlokes in the Metzias, the Mefarshim try to explain away, is they both agree on the degree of a chashash. The question is this degree of a chashash enough to be worried about? That's usually how we explain it. Here, I'm not sure how you would be able to explain machlokes and metzias. Is a machlokes in what is the das when they're selling, or is it a machlokes when I say these words? What do I mean? At the end of the day, it's going to be a machlokes in it's a shtickle machlokes and metzias. What this deal is, right? If there was something specified, all bets are off. This is only if I said I'm selling you the karka and I'm selling you the trees. But if I specify I'm selling you the trees and I'm also giving you rights to the land, there's no shaila. There's a shaila stam das of a person when they're selling, and like you're asking, well, lekech would have never bought it. So I guess the shaila is, what is the stam das of such a sale? And if the stam das is that that's how it is, well,
everybody's that. You could say what's the right.
So what would the nukudas hamachloikis be? It's how to assess what the roiv das is. Are you gonna say one Tana holds that you assess it based on the das of the miyuta people?
Question. It's not a metzias. It's not a physical.
It's not a physical metzias, but it's still a metzias. What is the das in such a sale? What do you mean?
Take a machlokes, it's not a metzias.
I don't know if this is Tommy or Torah. This is a mutar.
Know what the right answer is.
No, does the Torah say that roiv is adiv, or does the Torah say that korv is adiv? It's not a machlokes metzias. We know there's a roiv. We know there's a korv. What do you rule in such a situation? That's a shayla balach. Here, the question is, what is a person thinking? I'm not sure how you can explain that away. You're talking about a physical thing. Is a kier here? Is a kier there? I hear. Okay, so Dr. Gemara, Amir Nadoi, Achlan Ritzufin Ein Lo Chazak. What does Achlan Ritzufin mean? Zok the Rashbam. Ritzufin. Lahani Shloshim Milonois. You have 30 trees. Kigoyin Shinatuin Tesvav Bevesa. So if you remember, we discussed that in order for trees to be healthy, there has to be a certain concentration in the field. And we said that 10 ilanes per besa is the right concentration. If you plant things too congested together, they're not going to survive properly. So the question is, what if we had a property that the trees were planted too close together, they're too congested, ain't a chazaka. We don't consider that a chazaka. This is the property as you had it, and you're eating pears from it, it's not a chazaka. Even if you ate the fruits of all of the trees on this property for a full 3 years, it's still not a good chazaka. Normal people wouldn't make a chazaka this way. A normal person would pull out some of the trees so that the rest of the trees should have the proper amount of land around them that they will survive and flourish. The Ein Ru'in Lakayim, the trees in this field, the way they are planted, so concentrated, so close together, they're never going to remain that way. You're surely going to uproot some of these trees. So therefore, it wouldn't be a chazaka if the field was planted in not a healthy way. Zok to Gemara, Matzga Flora. Rav asked a kash on this. Elamayata. Hi Mishur das pasta. Mishur das pasta is something that's always planted too close together. But my kanila, how could you ever be kind? Now, you can ask a simple kasha. If that's the way it's normally planted, so you're going to be kind because that's the way it's normally planted. So that's what Rav Yitzchak was thinking. So the Rashbam right away asked this kasha. Zok to Rashbam. Hi Mishra Aruga das pasta, but my kanila. They are planted in too congested a fashion. Well, this is not really a kash. Lavat kaftam al Yosy. It's not a good kasha. The high urche, the aspasta is made to be planted this way. The high lav urche, and these trees are not to be planted in this fashion. High makish aratvei. If you have too many trees planted together, that's going to ruin the land. That's why it's not a proper chazaka. But the high loy makish, when you plant this aspasta close together, it doesn't damage the land. So there's really no kasha here. Ella Rava who the Leslie high svara. Rava just argues with this svara that if it's planted, if trees are planted in too congested a fashion, he held it was a chazaka, so he picked that kasha to ask, even though it wasn't a big kasha. So it's like if somebody wants to say a vort, but he wants to bring out the vort better, so he asks the kasha. So the worst thing is when you want to tell over a vort to somebody, and you ask a kasha, and you want to say your chiddush, and then someone tells you a different prat. Right? It's the worst thing. So Rav is like, let me just say my point. I know you don't like my kasha. Let me just say my point. So, but the Rishpama is a very innovative shot to make it stem good. V'yesh lefarish, alkalam retufin, ein chazaka. You know why? Shesoifon l'sharish oison ulefazin netiyosa, and everything here was done properly because shekin derech ilonois lintoya harbe tchila b'yachad. When you're planting saplings, you first plant them close together until they're partially grown. So this is the norm. It's the norm to plant even trees closer together, and then as they become more mature, you uproot many of them to spread them out better. So therefore, what we're saying here is nothing here is out of the usual. Nothing here is out of the ordinary. It's just that when they're in this temporary stage, that's not a good place to make a chazaka. Since this is just in their infancy, this is not the permanent layout of how this orchard would be laid out. Therefore, you can't make a chazaka. Then right, according to this shot, the kasha from Rav is good. That's exactly what the Rishbam is trying to say. Could be a good kasha. But Rai Ladover, and the Rai you could bring is the Gabinetiyas Ashkechon Yud Lebeisa. You find that when you have smaller plants, you have 10 in a Beisa, Uvilanis are Gimel Beisa, and fully grown trees, you need 3 Lebeisa. So you see, as the trees continue to grow and they need more and more space, you have to space them further apart. Everything grows as of the tiyos. And therefore they were planted with the concentration of yud lebeisa. And as the trees become mature, they uproot these trees and they spread them further apart. Like Moti said, and that's exactly comparable to aspasta. You cram them together and you plant them in high concentration, like they do to cress, ukrov, and cabbage. Then they uproot the small plant, and they can take from one little basket and they can fill an entire ruga because it becomes now permanent. Arugas are full row. Behind the park rubber, like Mati mentioned, it's exactly what Rabbi's kasha was. It's also a temporary layout that's going to be changed. Why is it a chazaka in a temporary layout of a spasta and not a chazaka for a temporary layout of trees? That's right. So Amar Maskavor Rabba Mat, I mentioned the spasta of my kanala. El Amar Rabba, I disagree with you. And I hold Machar Ritzufin. In fact, you will be able to make a chazaka. If anything, the halacha that you should say regarding the issue of a congested tree farm is Machar Ritzufin ein lekarka. That does not include any karka. That maybe that's the halacha, nothing to do with chazak. Let's see a little bit of a explanation for this. If you bought trees in someone else's property that were planted too close together, there he has no rights to any property. We just mentioned a rule that whenever you buy 3 trees together in someone else's property, automatically we say the owner is selling you some property around these trees to support them. Here you don't say that. You know why? Because these congested trees are designed to be uprooted and to be replanted in a more spread out fashion. The sada ilon, the laker ulasharish kaim. And could be the halach by spot to be exactly the same. That's exactly what Rav is saying. Legabe chazaka, avada would be a good chazaka. But now we're talking about a whole new question. A moicher is selling to a lakeach either trees in this field or even a spot in this field. They're surely not intending to include land around it. Now, by espasta, which is like a vegetable type of thing, anyway, you don't buy land. When you buy vegetables from somebody, you never buy land. So the whole shiloh really is only relevant to trees, because by trees, the halach is if you buy 3 trees in someone's property, it automatically includes land. That's if it's a permanent arrangement. But if clearly these are conjunct, it's like buying it from a nursery. When you buy a tree from a nursery, nobody has a havim in it that he's buying the land, because they're planted much more closely together just to sustain them temporarily till they can find a permanent home. So now the Gemara discusses this issue of when trees are planted too close together, it's only a temporary situation. How would it apply to Klein? Now the halacha is, if you want to plant some other zera, some foreign plant near a kerem, you have to be 4 amos away. What if you don't have a kerem? You only have a single wine plant, a single wine vine. There you only have to be, I believe, 3 tfachim away. So this question of whether or not we consider it like it's not really planted there when it's planted in the temporary fashion would be totally in the following machlokes. Kerem shunatua al pachas me'arba'amis. Normally, in between each row of a kerem, there has to be 4 amos to allow the proper access for the tools that you'll need there. What if you planted them 3 amos apart? So now you don't have a proper kerem. Rab Shimon Omer ain't a kerem. It's not a kerem. It doesn't have the halachas of kerem. Meaning, even though it's a full field of vines, you're allowed to plant with as long as you're 3 tefachim away within 4 amos, you're allowed to plant other zera, and it wouldn't be considered climb. It wouldn't be climb. Zok Rashbam al pachs midal amos shein ben shura l'shura l'gimel amos ain't a kerem, and therefore if I may be zera l'sham ain't a loika mishum l'loy sizra karma chaklayim and umutarim b'achila. It won't be us. It won't be also because of climb. That's what the Shimon says. Of course it's a kerem. But you know what you do? For royness and soyim kiloena. You look at every second row as if it's not there. Every second row is not a kerem. Now you have 6 amos in between each row. It's very much a kerem. So as long as you could make believe like the every second row is missing, that would make it into a kerem. So that's the machlokes. Do you say as if it's as if it's not there, or do you say it is considered there? Let's have a look at the Rashbam. You look at them as if they're not there. So now the Rashbam ties it back in. You look at the ones in the center, the ones that are too congested. You look at them like they're not there. Therefore, this field of trees will be considered a regular field of trees. So this is halacha that Bava said that if you sell a field that's too congested, there's no karka involved in the sale, even though you bought 3 trees, that would not apply according to the shita of the chachamim, because they'll hold no. You just look at it like the trees in the middle are missing, and you did buy a properly spaced field. And that's what the Gemara meant when the Gemara was saying that Rava's halacha is subject to a machlokes tanoim. The mills of the Rava tanoi krab Shimon u'doloi krabon. V'moiches asvina matarish kamayim u'rechaken Yosy midal ramis b'kat aviker. As long as they're spaced out, that there's a minimum of 4 amos in between rows, that would have the status of a carrot. Let's just see if we can get it on the base. Amri Nardoi said, "Mahayman the zavan dikla lechavre." If you sell a single decal to your friend, Hanilei, the person who bought the decal, Mishipulei Atahaim, he owns the land underneath the tree down to the center of the earth, all the way down to the core of the earth. Matzkaflo Rava. So Frek Rava, why is that? Why don't you tell him? I only sold you the rights of this plant until it dies. And Korchama de Rishka, the Rishbam tells us, is a tree that typically doesn't last forever. It lasts 2-3 years. So really, it's only a temporary sale. As the Rishbam says, just like the karcham gets uprooted after it's spent, and I never give you a right to plant another karcham in its place. Gamata, so too when I sold you this dekel, You shouldn't have a right to plant another plant in its place. So that's all I sold you. And get out of here. Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll finish Bezhashem tomorrow. But that is the discussion. How much they owe. Do you know that when I took my trade school in California, there was a guy in my class. He was from Kuwait, and it was a very, very expensive course. Going back 30 years, it was like a $10,000 course. And this fellow was in this $10,000 course. The guy did not show up. Maybe he showed up one day for the whole term. He showed up. I think he showed up the first day, and he never showed up after that. So I asked him, like, why would you come from Kuwait? Why would you come all the way from Kuwait and engage in this? You're totally disinterested. Why would you do this? So he says, very, very simple. Do you know that in Kuwait, we get a lot of benefits? Why do we get a lot of benefits? Because when you own land in Kuwait, you only own up to 50 feet below the surface. Anything below 50 feet belongs to the government, which means all of the oil resources belong to the government. So Bibal, they have all those oil resources. They give free education. So what do? I'm not interested in this course. I want a party in California. So we all book courses in California, and he partied in Shikajich, because in Kuwait, you drink alcohol and you do these mitzvahs and doivim to chop your head off. We all come here, we party, we machzach mishigah, because we took a course, and it's all expenses paid. That's why I'm here. Yeah. He also told us that in Kuwait, we hate the Israelis. You know why we hate the Israelis? Because they coddle the scum of the earth Muslims. Those are Palestinians. Because the Palestinians, by the Arabs, are looked upon to be the lowest of the low. And
standing up for them.
Oh, I'm still on YouTube. Okay, Shine.